On today's Prep Rally podcast, we will recap Charleston's big Class 3A state football championship win, and we'll also talk a little hoops.
It's the Prep Rally Podcast, the only podcast in the state dedicated to prep sports. Brought to you by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Here's your host, Chip Souza.
All right. This is the Prep Rally Podcast, and I'm Chip Souza, joined by Henry Apple and Leland Barclay today as we bring you the holiday edition of the Prep Rally Podcast. We're going to talk a little football, going to talk a little basketball, and maybe talk a little signing day coming up next week. So let's talk football first. Leland, you were down in Little Rock a little longer than maybe you thought you were going to be on Saturday. Had some weather issues in between, or actually during the 4A state championship game with Harding Academy and Malvern. Had about a 3 or 4 little siesta there. And then they finally came back, got that game finished. And then the 3A football state championship, Charleston and Booneville didn't kick off, Leland, until what, almost 9 o'clock?
It was 8:30, exactly 8:30 when they kicked off. So 2 hours late.
Wow. So the 4A game, Leland, that was the best game of all the championship games, wouldn't you say, as far as back and forth?
Yes. In fact, it went Harding Academy, Malvern, Harding, Malvern, Malvern, Harding, Malvern, Harding, Harding, Malvern, back and forth. It was 36-32 at that point in the second quarter.
Yeah. In the second quarter.
And then that started Malvern on a 5-touchdown streak, and they ended up putting it away 64-39. But it was a very entertaining game. The second most yards ever put up in a state championship behind the big Greenwood PA 56-55 game in 2009.
Right.
And 75 points scored in the first half, which was the most ever in a state championship game. So it was a very entertaining game. There were 2 different rain delays, storm delays, lightning delays, whatever you want to call them. In fact, it was kind of funny. They played 6 minutes, and then the lightning came, so they cleared the stands, sent the teams into the locker rooms. After about an hour, they brought them back. The fans were coming back into the stands. The teams had just finished warming up, and a big old thunderclap. So there they went back into cleared everything again. So after that, they got that game over with, and they had announced that the 3A game was going to start pretty late, and it ended up kicking off at exactly 8:30.
Wow. So Malvern wins the 4A state championship. The new 4A with no Shiloh Christian, no Joe T out of the picture, and so good to see some new teams in there playing and mixing it up in 4A. And congratulations to the Malvern Leopards on winning the 4A state championship. That moved us to Saturday night's main event for us, Booneville and Charleston, Part 2.
Well, it's funny. Alma Van Buren kicked off the high school season in the state of Arkansas on a hot summer Tuesday night, and the River Valley teams, Charleston, Booneville, ended it on a stormy night in December.
Yeah.
And it was, it was funny because, we know that Booneville had 9 players missing from that first game when they played during the regular season,
right,
including 5 defensive starters, including a 2,000-yard rusher for Booneville.
Right.
So, we didn't know really how this game would play out. It did not play out like any of us thought because Charleston controlled this game. I think they were bound and determined. It was kind of funny when I talked to them during the week. Booneville's attitude was kind of, hey, we've got our team back. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Charleston's attitude was a very subdued, although confident. I think really they were bound and determined to show Booneville and to let everybody know that, they still won that first game.
Yeah.
And they're still the outright conference champions.
Correct.
And they were still a pretty good team, too. So they were kind of, I think, determined to show that game really, that they were not going to let that first game and the fact that Booneville didn't have any players affect that second game. And they did. It was a very dominating defensive performance by Charleston in the first half. Charleston gave up on 4 possessions. Booneville had 4 possessions in the first half. Charleston gave up 60 rushing yards on 21 attempts. including 5 yards on 7 carries in the second quarter.
Wow. Well, I was watching the game. Arkansas PBS televised all of the championship games. I saw Booneville had a promising drive that got into Charleston territory there in the first quarter, had a couple of penalties that moved them back, and Charleston put the clamps on them. And that was really, for a while, Booneville's only serious scoring threat for a good long while in that game.
Yeah, into the fourth quarter. And to put Charleston's defensive performance in that first half into perspective, Booneville ended up finishing with 5,955 rushing yards for the season,
right,
which is a single-season state record for any classification. That's the most rushing yards any team has ever had in a season.
Right.
So this was, by all accounts, statistically the best rushing team in the history of Arkansas high school football, and they had 60 yards on 21 plays against Charleston's defense the first half.
Wow. Well, then that was huge because Booneville, although they did have 200 yards passing in a playoff game a couple weeks ago, they are a team that you get them in a 2 or 3 touchdown hole, it's hard for them to come back out of because of the clock. The clock is ticking, and it's hard to run yourself back from a 3 touchdown deficit, and that's what happened. Is number one, Charleston's defense played lights out, and number 2, the Charleston offense seemed to find ways to make big plays and keep the chains moving. Also made a couple of big plays in special teams that I saw. There was a terrific fourth down play in which they threw a pass over the top, and I don't know his name, Leland, number 21, made a tremendous catch to keep a drive alive. And also that same young man recovered what could have been a disastrous punt for Charleston in wet, kind of wet conditions and a little bit of rain falling. The Charleston punter tried to catch a wobbly short kick, and it got away from him, but 21 for Charleston was there to recover it for his team and keep possession for his team when it could have been different in that game.
That was number 21 was Bryson Kendricks, and it was a Charleston was up 7-0, and then they were driving again. This was early second quarter, and they had a fourth down.
Yeah.
They did a fake punt, which Brandon Scott was in punt formation, the quarterback. And he threw a pass to Bryson Kendricks, who went up and made he's right-handed, but he made a leaping one-handed left-handed catch.
Incredible
to
play.
Keep that drive around alive, which Charleston scored on to go up 14-0.
Yes.
The turning point of the game obviously was late in the first half. Charleston scored on a 1-yard run by Brandon Scott with 21 seconds left to go in the first half to go up 21-0. And then they forced a fumble on the ensuing kickoff that Reese Marishka recovered. On the next play, Scott hit Brighton Ketter on a 20-yard touchdown pass, and just like that, it was 28-0.
Yeah, that 4 touchdown deficit was just huge. Well, congratulations to Ricky May, one of our favorite coaches in this area, and the Charleston Tigers. And if I read this right, Ricky has won a state championship as a player, as an assistant coach, and now as a head coach.
Yes, he won it in 1986 as a sophomore running back for the Booneville Bearcats under Doug Scheel. They went back to the state championship game in 88, his senior year. They lost to McGee. And then in 2013 and 18, he was an assistant at Booneville when they won state champions. And, of course, now he's a head coach. So kind of the trifecta, the triple crown of state championships for somebody for sure.
Now, let's not shed a lot of tears here for Booneville because they will have Dax Goff coming back next year, a 2,000-yard rusher. Probably got some other weapons coming back, but Booneville will be right back in the middle of all of this again next year. And so they'll be good again. Charleston, major props to Brandon Scott, their 3-year starter at quarterback. He led them to the championship. He's been a big-time athlete at Charleston, a basketball player, a football player. He will graduate in May, and I know there are a lot of coaches in the 3A1 going, I want to buy that kid a graduation gift so he does not come back.
Well, in several different sports. You
Yeah.
know, he finished 5th in the golf tournament after just picking up clubs not too long ago. He will score he'll go out. I expect possibly before Christmas he may have a 40-point game in basketball.
Yeah, yeah. He's an incredible athlete. A typical Charleston Tiger. Excels in pretty much everything he does. And congratulations. He's all just a great kid too. Not just a great athlete. It's a great kid. And the kids from both those communities, they are the super kids, small town school kids that give it everything they got.
Absolutely. It was it was kind of a dream matchup for us in this area. Having a Booneville Charleston game for the state championship, because we've ever since we've started covering sports, we've known about Charleston and Booneville, and to get a matchup like that in the state championship game is just it's a dream come true, really.
And keep in mind too, Booneville won three road playoff games to get to the championship game. Charleston won a big road playoff game. And Leland, I knew when Charleston beat Rise and shut them out in the semifinals. When Charleston did that, I'm like, okay, I'm discounting the previous game with Booneville, throwing that out the window because of the player suspensions in that game. Charleston's defense is playing at a level right now that's going to be hard to beat, and they proved it again in the state championship game.
Absolutely. They gave up at one point. Their varsity defense had given up 2 touchdowns in 5 games.
Whoa.
And they had 11 mercy rules in their last 12 games. In fact, the only one that wasn't a mercy rule was the 27-0 win at Rison. So 11 mercy rules out of their 12 games after that non-conference loss to Nashville, which now we look back at those non-conference games because it's odd. Booneville and Charleston both lost on the same night.
Yeah.
Both at home in non-conference play, but Booneville's loss was to Harding Academy, which played for a state championship.
Yep.
Charleston's non-conference loss was to Nashville, which was in the semifinals of the 4A state playoffs. So how about those two schools, too, for going out and scheduling those type games in non-conference?
Yeah.
I hate that Rick Fire's in here, because this would be when I'd say, Rick, what was it about Booneville and Charleston?
They ain't scared.
Exactly.
They ain't scared. They will play, and Booneville's proven that. Charleston's proved it. Booneville's proved it by going into Texas and playing some really good teams in Texas in the past couple of years. So they will line up. I believe. What did Doc Crowley say, Leland? Anytime, any place, anywhere, or something like that? Absolutely.
Yeah, they had a game canceled because of COVID. I guess it was 2 years ago, and they loaded the bus and went to Texas and played.
Yeah. So props to them, and of course that capped the football season for us here in Northwest Arkansas and in the River Valley. And what a great season it was. Saw a lot of really great highlights this season. Saw some historic careers, finish up this year with Eli Wisdom at Shiloh Christian. What an epic and historic career he had as a 3-year starter there. And so had that going on. Kalen Morris at Fayetteville Henry was able to come back this season from a pretty serious injury in a car accident year before last to catch 100 passes and finish in the top 5 nationally receiving. Just lots and lots. Jacob Jenkins from Rogers setting a 7A West Conference rushing record this year, and so many highlights from Ty Durham over at Bentonville West, and it was just a phenomenal high school football season all the way around.
Oh, no doubt. When you start looking at the entire picture, you see the craziness of a 63-62 game Elkins and Nashville.
Yeah.
An overtime showdown between Bentonville and Fayetteville.
Where
have we seen that one before? But but it happens.
It happens. So again, congratulations to all the teams, this season, whether they made a playoff appearance or not. Just getting out there and playing. But now we move on to basketball. And Henry, we've got a pretty big basketball event coming up this weekend over at Bentonville and Bentonville West.
It will all be at Bentonville this year.
All at
Bentonville. The Hoop Hall South Classic, they started it last year at Bentonville West. Well, now it moves over to Tiger Arena this year. 3 nights of basketball with some nationwide teams. And some of the good teams from here in the state, like Bentonville West boys, Fayetteville boys, Little Rock Christian boys, Little Rock Central boys, and then you'll see some from out of state. And we'll also, it also will mark the start of conference play in the 6A West.
Correct. Bentonville and Bentonville West will play each other. The boys is the late Friday night game, and they'll play the late Friday night game. That will be the 6A West conference game for those two teams. Henry, we're supposed to tip off about 8:30. Could be a little later than that, but
I'm predicting 9:10.
9, something like that. And then the girls, Bentonville West girls, they'll have their conference game the next day on Saturday at 1:30. So we're getting those conference games ticked off. And then, but some for the small schools, some of those smaller schools have already started conference play.
I had two thrillers last night at conference play. Valley Springs hosted Flippin in the 3A1 conference opener last night, and a kid grabbed a rebound and hit a shot with 8 seconds left to give Valley Springs a 54-53 win over Flippin, and they had just opened conference play. Just a few miles closer to us in Kingston, Chisholm Floyd. I kind of like that name.
I like that name, Chisholm Floyd. I like that.
You say Chisholm Floyd, and you've got to think shooter.
Yeah.
Now, preferably like pistols or something like that.
Yeah, like a Wild West gunslinger kind of a name.
But he pulls up, hits a shot with 9 seconds left to give Kingston a 2-point win over Lead Hill in a conference play.
Okay.
So saw some, I did. Went and watched the replay of Valley Springs and Flippin just to see. Every time a coach sends me a score, I see a 1-point or 2-point game. First question I'm going to ask is, okay, was there a last-second shot that won this?
Yeah.
But thank goodness for live streams. I knew where it was. I went and watched it, and sure enough, there it was.
Pulled up and boom, knocked it down. Leland, we'll kick it over to you now. The Tournament of Champions down in Fort Smith was held last weekend. Sapulpa, Oklahoma, claimed the championship game, and that was great. The third-place game, how about the Bergman girls rallying in the second half to knock off Fort Smith Northside?
Well, we saw that a couple of years ago with them. Obviously, they're very good. A lot of local flavor.
Yeah.
Bergman, Lamar girls,
Yep.
Northside girls, just fantastic teams and programs, and that was a great game. Sapulpa is, I think, really good.
Yeah, they are. So we had last weekend was Tournament Central going on around here, Henry. We had the Tournament Champions going on down in Fort Smith at Fort Smith Northside. We had the Rogers Arvest tournament going on, boys tournament over at Rogers High School. Is that right? I had that one going on. We had the Northwest Arkansas Classic, NWA Classic was girls games going on over at Bentonville, where we had Fayetteville, Springdale Harbor, and host Bentonville, and they played and on a rotating basis. North Little Rock, who am I missing? North Little Rock,
Greenwood,
and
Tulsa Union.
So rotated those around. North Little Rock went 3-0 in the Classic. Bentonville went 2-1, and so some pretty good girls games. I know North Little Rock, defending state champions in Class 6A, and Henry, they look pretty good again.
They have won 6 games in Northwest Arkansas over an 11-day span because they played in the Grade 8 tournament over at Rogers Heritage. Won that one, come back and won that. After the Saturday game against Bentonville, I went up to Daryl Fimple. I said, "Hey, man, I'm hearing a rumor you're going to move all your games up here." And he laughed. He said, "But, the state tournament is going to be here at Rogers."
Right.
And so he said, "We did this specifically for that reason, to get acclimated up here."
Yeah, well, they've done a good job with it. So just some great basketball going on. We also had the Battle at the Ridge over at P Ridge. Henry, that was Bergman and County Line and Prairie Grove and Bergman boys, and I think they moved to 16-0, 17-0, something like that.
Yeah.
Won that
County
tournament.
Line won it all.
Won it all.
Beating P Ridge in the championship game Saturday. So.
Had that one going on, and just lots of great basketball, and of course conference play, like Henry mentioned a while ago, will kind of get kicked off this week with Bentonville West, and then it kicks off in full next week.
Yeah, you'll have some games on Tuesday night and Thursday night next week.
Yep.
And even not even the 6A West, but the 4A1 will open up
Yes.
with conference games this weekend. I know Thursday night it's Gentry and Pea Ridge at Pea Ridge Thursday night. Friday night you get Shiloh Christian and Gravett. Farmington, who I watched last night, will go travel to Berryville.
That'll be a good boys game.
Yeah. I was very interested to see how Farmington's girls were going to react after Luke taking their first loss Saturday night up at Joplin.
I think they did okay.
They were utterly ticked off. When you score the game's first 36 points, that's a statement.
They wanted to come out and put that loss in the championship game up at Joplin in the rearview mirror, and they did that to the tune of a 36-0 start to that game last night against Siloam Springs. Jenna Lawrence, she is every bit as good as advertised,
and can do it all. She can go inside and score. When you're 6'3" and everybody else is not near that tall, it's easy. She could just sit there all day long and just say, "Hey, feed me the ball." And no, but she likes to go out there and say, "Hey, watch this," and bomb a few 3-pointers.
Well, that's what she'll play at the next level. She'll be an out on the perimeter player at Arkansas, and she's worked a lot on that shot. Little segue here. This weekend, Sunday, the Prep Rally basketball preview section will come out. She's on the cover of the preview section. I talked to her for a little interview, and she's told me about all the work that she put in the off season. Taking over kind of the leadership of that team, because last year she came in as a new player, and that was kind of Carson Dillard's team, and she led them to the state championship game like a senior would. She graduated. She's gone on to play at the college level. It was Jenna Lawrence's turn to kind of take over leadership of the team, and she's done that, and she's really worked hard on her game and trying to be more than just a back-to-the-basket player, because she knows at the next level she'll be a perimeter player. So that's, it's nice to have a 6'3" girl who can step out on the three-point line and knock them down and also still take you, off the dribble.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Yeah. So, Leland, we also have some coaching news going on up here. Don't know if what's going on in the River Valley coaching news, but we've got a few coaching things up here. We've talked about the Springdale Harbor football coaching job being open after Chris Wood has moved over into athletic administration for Springdale Public Schools. So they are hopeful to have a new coach in place in January. That's the statement that I got. They hope to have a new coach in January. I know there's a lot of rumors, being thrown out there about this coach and that coach and bringing Tom Landry back from the dead and all of that. None of that's going to happen, by the way, Henry. If it does, we're talking about a whole lot different story here. If that happens. But anyway, I'm sure they'll get a good one. But Springdale Harbor football coach, so they're endeavoring to fill that position hopefully by January. I also found out yesterday, highly successful softball coach at Rogers, Mike Harper, is stepping down from coaching, going to continue to be a teacher with Rogers, but he is stepping down as a coach. Hey, Drew, that's a pretty big job. It's Rogers has had some success in softball.
Yeah. Granted, that now that Kent Early has built this monster in Bentonville, it's kind of, fallen to the wayside a little bit, but hey.
What I want is Preston Early not to be the basketball coach at Rogers, but take the softball job and see those two Earlys go at it. That's what I want to see.
And let Brian Early be the umpire.
There you go.
Yeah. The only thing that leaves me scratching my head about this is the timing.
It is kind of, you kind of wonder about it, and I'll say this too. We talked about this a little while ago in another meeting I had. When you get to be our age, Henry, our age. Yeah. When a coach steps down, kind of like in January, you're like, oh, I wonder if it's health related or whatever, because we're not young people anymore. I don't even know that that's a part of it, and I'm sure it's probably not. But it's always kind of the first thing you kind of think about is it could be a health issue, especially after losing Mike Leach this past week with the heart attack and that kind of thing. Once that calendar hits 60. Leland's passed that calendar too, by the way. But once you cross over that 60, things kind of every little creak you have, you're like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? So hopefully none of that entered into the equation for Mike Harper. I'm sure it didn't, but you always kind of think that.
Yeah, he's 57.
Yeah.
Well,
he's just a young guy, Leland.
So,
He's a pup.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be interesting to see. Does Will Rogers just hand it to the assistants and say, "Hey,
yeah.
it's yours for the taking for right now.
Yeah.
If you want it for 1 year on a trial and see,
Interim
if you
kind
like
of a
them
thing. Yeah.
or if they say no, we don't want this. How fast can they find a quality coach for this program in such short notice when basically the season will start in 3 months?
Well, you'd have to have a coach to be able to be let out of a contract at another. If he's coaching it, he or she is coaching at another school. Now, if you have someone, it's been an assistant coach somewhere who would have an opportunity to be a head coach, then a school might say, you know what, this is a great opportunity for you. We're going to let you out of your contract so you can take that job. That you might find that situation, but normally at this time, it's going to go to an interim, and who knows if that maybe Mike has somebody in mind that he wants to assume this job, and maybe that has something to do with it too. Like, I'll do this in January. That way, this person gets the job, quote unquote interim, and gets a chance to prove themselves because I feel like they can take this program over. Could be that too.
Yeah.
Could be that too. So that's what we got going on with that. We also have early signing day coming up. That's December 21st is the first day that football players can sign early with colleges. So as of right now, Henry, the only ones in Northwest Arkansas that I know at this time who are having any kind of signings going on the 21st are Joey Sua at Bentonville and Kalen Morris at Fayetteville, who's signing as a preferred walk-on with Arkansas. That's the only two that I know of signing Division I programs upcoming in the early signing period. I'm sure there's going to be others. I just don't know who. I don't know who they are.
Braden Jones of Bentonville West will sign with Central Arkansas Wednesday afternoon.
UCA.
So
Okay.
Brian Pratt had already texted me on that and said, that will take place.
Okay. Leland, have you heard of any in the River Valley who are signing?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So, as of course, we will have coverage of those signings as they happen, and in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. We also want to mention, the basketball section, preview section coming out this Sunday. That is December the 17th or 18th? 18th. December the 18th. That's coming out. Also want to mention that our all Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette selections will start on the 24th with the release of our volleyball team. Then the football team will be the next day on December 25th, and then we will also honor athletes in cross country and tennis and golf. So 5 fall sports athletes will be honored in 5 fall sports. That will start in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette starting December the 24th with the release of the volleyball. And then Leland in the River Valley, we've already started releasing the all River Valley selections. We have released the tennis last weekend. We have golf this week. Cross country this weekend. I think we've done golf, correct? Is that right?
Correct.
We have the volleyball coming up for December the 25th, which is Christmas Day. Will be the volleyball teams will be released, and then the football teams will be released on January 1st. That's the All River Valley, completely separate team from the All Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And so we're honoring a lot of athletes, a lot of great athletes throughout for their fall sports. That's coming up in the editions of the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette and the River Valley Democrat-Gazette. What else we got going on?
Well, like you said, the 6A West is starting up. I know you guys, Bentonville and Bentonville West, or girls, I think, are starting early. Southside plays 2 games next week, 1 at home, 1 at away. Northside plays 1, and then they have the open date. And then over the Christmas break, of course, the big Fort Smith Coca-Cola Classic,
yes,
which is always a good one. That's a boys tournament. And then Bank of OZK in Ozark.
Yeah.
That's always a big local tournament.
And great hospitality food.
Oh, absolutely. And then also the Bill Fry Invitational in Mansfield, which is another one that's, very, very, local flavor generally. So those are the three big ones, and all three of those are the 28th, 29th, and the 30th.
Okay, so those are holiday tournaments. Also, Henry will have a Neosho tournament coming up that same time, which is always a big tournament up here in Neosho, Missouri. Got anything else?
We'll have the Gravette Christmas Classic. And
Okay.
it will start on the 27th. And
Okay.
on the 27th, 28th, 29th. The Lady Blackhawk Holiday Invitational will be at P Ridge.
P Ridge, okay.
Berryville will have its Christmas tournament.
That's right, the Bobcat, yeah.
A very traditional tournament
Yes.
is the Lyndall Thomas Classic at Harrison.
Harrison, yes, yeah.
So
Lots of good holiday basketball tournament coming up. There'll be a little bit of a break. Speaking of that, we also want to mention we'll have a break with our Prep Rally podcast. We'll take a break for 3 weeks, and we will. Today will be our last podcast until January the 11th, and we'll come back on January the 11th, and then we will carry you from January the 11th all the way through to May. We will not have a break in there from January the 11th all the way through May, and by that time, it'll be Leland's kind of years. It'll be a little warmer then, be a lot warmer, and we'll be out of the winter months, and we'll be into the spring sports and that kind of stuff before you know it. I've already seen on Facebook. I'm Facebook friends with Scott Johnson. He used to be the coach at Springdale. He's now at the Billies. What are they? The
Monticello.
Monticello. He's been working on his field, and they've been out there taking ground balls and stuff, and getting a little while. You know, when they have a few little warm days, 60 degrees, Leland, you get the bat and ball out there and start taking ground balls.
I've seen some teams. I drove by Greenwood last week, and it was not baseball weather at all. But the Bulldogs were out there.
There you go. Got to get out there, take some ground balls, and get a few swings in. Maybe pitch a little bit. So they're getting ready to crank up, and softball will be doing the same thing. Also saw, Henry, where the athletic softball and baseball. I'm not sure if it was softball and baseball, but I know baseball for sure at Rogers is in contention for being one of the top facilities in the country. And if you've never been to see the complex at both Rogers High School and Rogers Heritage, and how they have the baseball and softball complexes back to back, like they do it similar to Bentonville, except a little bit more cozy, a little bit closer in proximity to each other. I tell you what, man, it makes you want to go back to high school and maybe get to play on one of those fields. They're beautiful.
One of these days, when the temperature will have to suffice for me to do it. But I'm going to pull off something.
You going to pull off the double?
No.
You going to do double play?
What I want to do is cover a baseball game at Rogers High School's baseball field while sitting up there at the football press box.
I've done it. I did it at Heritage. The 6A state softball tournament last year. I covered a game from the press box on the football field, looking into the softball field at Rogers Heritage.
And you can do the same thing at Rogers High School.
It's like being in a luxury box.
Yeah.
I mean, I was outside, so I'm sitting out on the walkway. But I had my lawn chair at Leland. This is no lie. I had my lawn chair sitting out there, and I'm covering the state 6A softball tournament. Now, the hospitality room, Henry, was right there. I mean, I had to guard it. I mean, somebody had to guard the hospitality room. And so I took one for the team, and I said, I'll do it, and I'll cover the game right from here. Got my binoculars out, because I can barely see 5 feet ahead of me without some kind of help. But anyway, that was awesome. You need to do that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and already you brought up hospitality room.
Yeah.
I have to bring this up. Friday night at P Ridge, I no sooner get into the arena, have someone pat me on the back, and it's Trent Lloyd. And he says, we got Italian in the hospitality room. I said, you won me.
See, I'm going to tell you a little story, and Leland's going to know this too. Trent Lloyd is the son of who, Leland?
Randy Lloyd.
Who coached basketball for how many years, Leland?
27.
Who knows hospitality rooms better than anybody, Leland?
That would be Coach Lloyd.
Trent knows how to put on a tournament, and he knows who to take care of, okay? He knows how that works. The River, I know we've got some good schools up here that do that, but nobody puts on hospitality like the River Valley schools. And I know that because I spent 5 years down there, and you've never had hospitality food until you've gone to games or tournaments in Mansfield or in Hackett, or at what used to be Fort Smith Christian School over there in Fort Smith, or Van Buren, or the mecca of hospitality, Alma. Okay, I'm just saying.
Well, and one of the best ones I've ever been to was Johnson County West Side.
Oh, I could see that. The small, usually the smaller the better.
Yep, homemade coconut cream pies.
There you go.
That was still warm.
So you want to get good coverage from the from the Democrat-Gazette. Have a good hospitality room. That's what's going to get you good coverage. I'm just saying.
It's definitely time to steal one of those lines we always hear during this time of the season.
Yeah.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
There you go. I'm going to use a Field of Dreams. If you cook it, we will come.
There you go.
So Leland, I'm going to miss you for a couple of weeks. I'm not going to get to see that Leland's face there for a couple of weeks. And while we take a little break, but we will be back with the Prep Rally podcast again, January the 11th. We're going to take a little holiday time. And we'll be back on January the 11th. We also want to thank Spencer Tyree. He's our producer for the podcast every week and does such a great job with that and all the multimedia that he does for the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Also want to thank all of our reporters, Rick Fires, Paul Boyd, Al Gaspeny, Ethan Westerman, Harold McIlvain, Walter Woody, photographers Hank Layton and Brent Soleil, who's done a great job with our football photos this year. We want to thank the design desk in Little Rock for handling the ton and volume of content. Frankie Frisco and his group down there for working with us, and Leland, particularly you and you and Brennan, the real brains of the operation, Brennan Barclay. We know that. And if you didn't get a chance to see the incredible video that Brennan got from the 6A state championship game, the 5A state championship game down in Little Rock, I'm putting in a petition with the AAA, Henry, that all games be played on Saturday afternoons. I don't care if we have to take a year to play football games. They should all be played on Saturday. And the sun has to be out, and it has to be, I'm sorry, Lena, it has to be 65 degrees, 55 to 60 degrees minimum, and then we'd get great photos. I'm putting in a recommendation for that right now.
That will work for me. I've mentioned before on the podcast, because some of these schools have to play a Saturday afternoon game, move the semifinals to Saturday afternoon.
Love it. Yeah.
You're not bumped with the Razorbacks.
Because you're talking about the Saturday after Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
They played their game on Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you can take your time to, if you need to travel, you've got the time to travel over there. You can stay overnight somewhere and stuff like that.
I like that. I do like that. Afternoon games are the best to me. The photos are just awesome when you have the great sunshine out there and great video. So anyway, I think we need to put together a petition and we need to get signatures on that, and we'll present that. How about that?
That'll work for me.
How about that? So, Leland, you have anything else to add before we close this 2022 edition of the podcast?
All I can say is Merry Christmas to you guys and everybody that helps us, the schools, the coaches, the athletes, because it is, we've seen sometimes how difficult it is to cover, some of the stuff that goes on in college. These coaches and administrators in our area for high school sports, they make our job and just covering this so much fun.
Yeah, they do. So for everyone involved in the Prep Rally podcast and the coverage of sports in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette and in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, I also want to mention, before I forget this, thanks to Rex Nelson and that crew for the Friday night show that they host, and all of us guys call in. Want to mention that as well. And all that Rex does for high school football in the state with his poll and things like that. We want to put a special shout out for him too. And just anybody involved in high school athletics, we appreciate what you do, and it does not go unnoticed. So for Henry Apple, for Leland Barclay, for Rick Fires and Paul Boyd, who are not here today, I'm Chip Sousa. Thanks for listening to the Prep Rally Podcast. We will be back here January the 11th.
The Prep Rally Podcast is produced and directed by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.